Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cricket Roundup for this week on the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. This week's Cricket Roundup is a bit of a different Cricket Roundup this week because it's a live stream. And we're going to be doing this from time to time where we're going to be live streaming Cricket Roundups from time to time. But thank you, everyone, who's joined us for this live stream today for this week's Cricket Roundup on the podcast. And we've got lots to talk about. Let's have a talk about what we're going to talk about today on today's Cricket Roundup. So on today's Cricket Roundup, we're going to be talking about the Commonwealth Games. The women's competition for 2022 was an amazing tournament. We're going to be talking about Meg Lanning taking a break from cricket. We're going to be talking about Trent Boult and his decision to pretty much give up his central contract with New Zealand. We're going to be talking about the West Indies versus India T20 International Series, the West Indies and New Zealand T20 International Series, the Ireland and Afghanistan T20 International Series, and the ODI Series between Zimbabwe and Bangladesh. So that's on today's Cricket Roundup today. So we've got lots to talk about. And for those who are watching the live stream, if you're in the chat, let us know your thoughts on the particular topics that we're going to be discussing in this Cricket Roundup today. But without further ado, let's get into the Cricket Roundup today. Let's talk about the Commonwealth Games. First of all, the women's competition for 2022. Australia winning the gold medal, India winning silver, and New Zealand winning bronze. And it was a very good tournament, and good to see cricket back at the Commonwealth Games, I should say, not the Olympics. Good to see that competition in the Commonwealth Games, and good to see cricket back in the Commonwealth Games for the first time since 1998. But let's talk about the bronze medal match and the gold medal match first of all. Let's talk about the bronze medal match first, and that was between England and New Zealand. And New Zealand won that by 8 wickets. A quite convincing win in the end. Let's have a look at the match summary from that bronze medal match. First of all, between England and New Zealand. England batted first, made 9 for 110 from their 20 overs. Nat Siver top scored with 27. Hayley Jensen took 3 wickets for New Zealand. New Zealand, in reply, made light work of the run chase, finishing on 2 for 111 from 11.5 overs. Sophie Devine, the captain, top scored with 51. Nat Siver and Kemp both took 1 wicket each for England. Pretty much a one-sided match. Not really much to talk about between England and New Zealand. Pretty much a one-sided match from ball one, really. England didn't show up at all. Didn't really get going in this match. They lost wickets at regular intervals, didn't build partnerships. 9 for 110 wasn't going to be enough for them to win this bronze medal match. Just going through the motions, didn't turn up at all in this match, whereas New Zealand were ready to play this match, ready to win the bronze medal, and that's what they did in the end, and they were able to win the match and claim the bronze medal. So pretty much a one-sided game, not really much to talk about. Good performance from New Zealand in the end to win the bronze medal. England will be disappointed about not winning a medal at these Commonwealth Games. Being the home Commonwealth Games, they'll be disappointed about not winning the bronze medal in the end. But pretty much a one-sided affair, New Zealand winning that by 8 wickets. And then we go on to the gold medal match between Australia and India. And that was a very good match in the end. It went back and forth between Australia, India. At one stage, Australia were favourites and India were favourites. In the end, Australia won by 9 runs and pretty much took out this gold medal match in the end. Their batting performance was pretty good. Beth Mooney top scored with 61 as Australia made 8 for 161 from their 20 overs. Singh and Rana took 2 wickets each for India. India, in reply, all out for 152 from 19.3 overs. Harmanpreet Kaur top scored with 63, and Ash Garner took 3 wickets for Australia. And in the end, Australia too good for India. Obviously, Beth Mooney's innings was the key, 61 of 41 deliveries. Some other contributions from Meg Lanning, 36, Ash Garner, 25, and Rachel Haynes, 18 not out, were all crucial for Australia getting to that good score of 161 in the gold medal match. They bowled well and took wickets when they needed to, Australia, throughout the bowling performance. They held their nerve under pressure and they were able to get the job done. For India, they'll be disappointed about how they performed in this gold medal match. Obviously, they did well to win against England in the semi-final to be in the gold medal match against Australia. It was always going to be tough. Australia were favourites, but India gave it a good fight. And they'll be disappointed not to win the gold medal. But to win silver is a good achievement at a Commonwealth Games. They bowled well to keep Australia to 161. Was a good result. Anything higher than that would have been difficult to chase, especially in the final or the gold medal match. It's never easy when you're chasing, especially when there's big runs on the board. And that was the challenge for India, to try and chase down this total. They'll be disappointed. They were matching the run rate throughout the whole innings. That's why I went back and forth with Australia and India throughout this match. And Harmanpreet Kaur was batting well, 63 or 43 balls. She was the key. If she stayed in and stayed there until the end, pretty much India was pretty much going to win this match. Unfortunately, she got out, and then that started a batting collapse from India. They lost 8 for 34 to be bowled out for 152 in the end. So a disappointing batting performance towards the back end of the innings for India. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get the job done. But it was a very good game. It went back and forth, as I said. But Australia, it was never in doubt. They were always the favourites to win the gold medal. And they won the gold medal and they claimed victory in these Commonwealth Games. So Australia winning by 9 runs in the end to claim the gold medal in these Commonwealth Games competition for the women's cricket. So it was a very good tournament overall, you have to say. A very good tournament, I thought. We saw some very good cricket throughout the tournament. And it's great to see cricket back at the Commonwealth Games again, obviously the first time since 1998 when the men came to play cricket in the Commonwealth Games. That was back in Malaysia back in 1998. So 24 years ago, it was good to see women's cricket in this year's Commonwealth Games. And also for 2026, the Commonwealth Games in 4 years' time in Victoria, we're going to be seeing women's cricket back in the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Victoria. So that will be fantastic to see. Hopefully we see cricket in the Olympics. There's been talk about that cricket may feature in the Olympics in the near future for the 2028 Games. Let's see what happens there. But it was a tremendous Commonwealth Games competition for the women. Very exciting cricket, and congratulations to Australia on winning the gold medal. Now, let's move on and talk about Meg Lanning. Now, Meg Lanning has decided to take a break from cricket for a while. She has decided to take an indefinite break of cricket for a while, a period of leave from cricket for personal reasons for her taking this break. She said in a written statement, she said, after a busy couple of years, I've made the decision to take a step back to enable me to spend time focusing on myself. I'm grateful for the support of CA and my teammates, and I ask that my privacy, I should say, is respected during this time. So Meg Lanning, obviously a tremendous player in the Australian women's team, obviously a good captain. She's led the team to just recently winning the gold medal at the Commonwealth Games, and also winning the 50-over World Cup earlier this year in New Zealand. I can see why she will be a bit burnt out, needing a break. If there's one person that deserves a break, it's Meg Lanning for all the work she's done. But it's just a reminder for all of us to look after ourselves, recharge the batteries, and hopefully we see Meg back on the cricket field soon. Hopefully we see her back in the near future. But she's decided to take a break and to recharge the batteries, and hopefully we see Meg Lanning back on the park very shortly. Now, let's talk about Trent Boult. And Trent Boult has been in the news this week because he's decided to give up his central contract with New Zealand. The reason behind Trent Boult doing this was to spend more time with his family while also making himself available for domestic leagues around the world. Boult requested the release after several conversations with New Zealand Cricket. In a statement, the New Zealand chief executive, David White, said Boult had made it clear during discussions that his appetite for touring had diminished and that he wished to spend more time with his family. Trent Boult will be still available for international selection if and when available, but will have a significantly reduced role with the New Zealand side going forward during the final years of his career. Obviously, giving up his central contract has put him in that position, but that's the decision that Trent Boult has made. Also, the chief executive of New Zealand Cricket said that the New Zealand selectors would continue to prioritise players with central or domestic contracts, and Boult understood his decision would diminish his chances of playing for New Zealand going forward. Trent Boult said the call to step away was a really tough decision. Playing cricket for my country was a childhood dream, and I'm so proud of everything I've been able to achieve with the Black Caps over the 12 years, he said. So basically the biggest motivator, he said, was family, spending more time with the family. And while he's able and fit and firing, he'll be able to still offer his services for New Zealand, but also spend more time with his family and play in domestic leagues, T20 domestic leagues around the world. So Trent Boult's decision there, it's an interesting decision. Is it going to be the catalyst for other players to give up their central contracts going forward in international teams? We'll have to wait and see on that. Going forward, but he's made this decision. I think every player has a different set of circumstances and priorities, and Trent Boult's made that decision for himself to spend more time with his family and less time touring as the years go on. Cricket touring is very demanding on the players, and it is very tough being away from home for a lot of months of the year, not spending much time with your family. So he's made that decision to step aside and spend time with his family, which is the main thing that he's done with this decision from stepping away from his central contract with New Zealand. So it'll be interesting to see if other players will follow his lead. We'll have to wait and see. It depends on everyone else's different circumstances and priorities. But that's the decision he's made. We've got to respect that decision. And New Zealand Cricket have, and his teammates have. And obviously, Trent Boult's doing what he feels like is the right thing to do for him and his family going forward into the future. Now, let's talk about the West Indies and India, that T20 International Series that concluded. It was a one-sided affair, pretty much, between the West Indies and India. India winning the series 4-1. The first T20 International, India won by 68 runs. The second T20 International, the West Indies won by 5 wickets, so were able to bounce back. In the third T20 International, India won by 7 wickets. The fourth T20 International, India won by 59 runs. And the fifth and final T20 International of the series, India won by 88 runs. And it was pretty much a convincing victory in the end. They won the series 4-1 out of the best of 5 T20 Internationals. So a very convincing victory for India and a disappointing result for the West Indies. India trying different players out before that T20 World Cup later on this year in Australia. That's what they've done in this series against the West Indies. Everyone got a go. Everyone did well. There was some good performances throughout the series. And they'll be pleased with how they performed as a team in this series against the West Indies, especially building towards that T20 World Cup later on in the year. For the West Indies, they were inconsistent, couldn't perform in these games. They were able to win that second T20 International by 5 wickets, where Obi McCoy got 6 for 17. But it sort of fell away after that. Lots of questions for them to answer as a group and as a team going forward, especially heading into the T20 World Cup later on this year in Australia. There's a lot of questions to answer, a lot of reflection to do for this West Indian side if they are going to perform well in the T20 World Cup later on this year in Australia. So a one-sided series, India winning the series 4-1. Now let's talk about the West Indies and New Zealand T20 National Series. That's currently happening as we speak at the moment. the first two T20 nationals have been played and they've been completed. New Zealand won the first T20 national by 13 runs and the second T20 national by 90 runs. So a very convincing performance from New Zealand in the first two T20 nationals of this series against the West Indies. For the West Indies, unfortunately, they got off to a bad start again. As like in the India series, they've done the same thing in the New Zealand series. Two poor performances. The first game, they only lost by 13 runs. The second game was a bit of a blowout by 90 runs in the end. New Zealand made 5 for 215, batting first in the second game. The West Indies finished on 9 for 125 from their 20 overs. So yet again, the West Indies, inconsistent in their performances and a lot of questions, a lot of answers for them. They've got a lot of things to work out and think about going forward. Obviously, the third and final T20 national of this series between the West Indies and New Zealand, that will be on the August the 14th. They will be at Sabina Park. Can the West Indies win that last game and hopefully avoid a 3-0 series defeat to New Zealand? New Zealand have already wrapped up the series. They won the first 2 games out of 3. All they need to do is just win the last game to make sure it's a 3-0 series win for the West Indies. They need to show a bit of fight, a bit of character, need to bounce back because at the moment they're not playing well in the T20 format and they need a win to boost their confidence going forward for that T20 World Cup later on in the year. So the West Indies got a lot of work to do there. Let's talk about the Afghanistan and Ireland T20 National Series. That's currently happening at the moment. It's a 5-match T20 International Series. We'll have a look at the results thus far in the series. The first T20 International, Ireland won by 7 wickets. It was a good performance in the end. The second T20 International, Ireland won by 5 wickets. And the third T20 National, Afghanistan won by 22 runs. It was a good performance from them to get back into this series. Currently, the series sits at 2-1, best of 5 T20 Internationals. The last 2 T20 Nationals will be played in Belfast on August the 15th and August the 17th will be the last 2 T20 Nationals to be played in the series. So Ireland and Afghanistan certainly fine-tuning their teams and preparation as they look ahead, I should say, to that T20 World Cup in Australia later on this year. They'll be looking to work out different combinations, what sort of players they want. But the series is evenly poised at 2-1 at the moment, best of 5. Can Afghanistan bounce back and make it 2-2 to take it to a 5th and final decider in this T20 National Series? It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the next game. In the next 2 games will be critical in terms of whoever's going to win this series. So an interesting series developing there between Ireland and Afghanistan. Now, for our final talking point of this Cricket Roundup for today, let's talk about Zimbabwe and Bangladesh, the recent ODI series that just concluded in Zimbabwe between Zimbabwe and Bangladesh. Zimbabwe won the series 2-1. It was a pretty much one-sided series for the first 2 games, and then Bangladesh was able to come back in the last game. Let's have a look at the results from the ODI series. The first ODI, Zimbabwe won by 5 wickets. Sakinda Raza was the man of the match. He got 135 not out. He batted well to guide Zimbabwe to victory in that first game. The second ODI, Zimbabwe were able to win by 5 wickets again, just like in the first ODI. Raza was named man of the match again. Back-to-back centuries for him. 117 not out this time in the second game. He batted well again. And in the third and final ODI, Bangladesh were able to win by 105 runs and were able to finish off the series with a win and avoid a 3-0 series defeat. So a very good series for Zimbabwe. Obviously for Zimbabwe, they've got India coming up very shortly. That's on August the 18th for that ODI series in Zimbabwe. And they also make their way out to Australia later on this month for the first of 3 ODIs starting on the 28th of August against Australia. So a busy couple of series for Zimbabwe there, but definitely a good series result for them. Bangladesh would be disappointed. Didn't quite play well in this series. But for Zimbabwe, good signs for them going forward as a group, going forward as a one-day unit. They'll be hoping to put in some good performances against that India lineup in that series, which is starting very shortly. And also when they come to Australia later on in the month, they'll be looking to do well in Australia if they can. So for Zimbabwe, good to see them winning and good to see them playing some good cricket. Well, I think that's all the time we've got for today for this Cricket Roundup. Let us know in the comments of this video of all the topics that we talked about today. We would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section about what you think on the topics that we discussed in today's Cricket Roundup. Also, before we go today and before we end this live stream in this episode of Cricket Roundup today, we've got some news on the podcast going forward in the next few weeks and months. Very exciting stuff. Also, next Saturday on the podcast, we'll be having a special guest joining me for a special live stream on Saturday of next week. And that's Gabe from Cricket for Americans. I've been on Cricket for Americans YouTube channel live streams many times before in the last few months and weeks. And also Nick and Gabe have been on our podcast before last year for an interview. So Gabe will be joining me next Friday for a cricket discussion, talking about all things about cricket, just having a good old chat about the game. And we'd love to have many of you join us for that discussion next Saturday, I should say. If you're in the USA, it'll be on Friday evening. But if you're in Australia or other parts of the world, it'll be on Saturday. We'd love to see everyone there. Any questions you'll have for me or Gabe, we'll like to answer them and talk about different topics within the game as well. So that live stream, the timings for that are on our YouTube channel. Make sure you click the bell so you don't miss out on that live stream. Next Saturday, me and Gabe from Cricket for Americans doing a live stream, pretty much a live discussion on the game of cricket. Also, throughout the Australian summer, this summer on the podcast, we'll be live streaming games, matches, watch-alongs. We'll be doing that this summer, trying to do our best to cover everything this Australian summer. So they're excited for that. Make sure you click the bell so you don't miss out on those live streams when we do go live. So that will be exciting. So click the bell, as I said, so you don't miss out on those live streams. Timings for that will be on our YouTube channel in due course. So that's pretty much what's happening over the next few weeks and months on the podcast. We'll love to see you there. Join us for those live streams, as like today with this Cricket Roundup, and hopefully with the watch-alongs and with Gabe next week on Saturday, I should say, for that live stream. We'll love to see everyone there engaging and talking with us on the podcast. But before we end this Cricket Roundup for today, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast. Like and share our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Most of the podcast is now available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.